as the Canadian media have been pointing out, that Trudeau, who had pledged a year ago to reveal the evidence in public, has not revealed any shred of evidence linking India with the killing of this Sikh separatist who was designated in India as a terrorist wanted in several acts of terrorism in the Indian state of Punjab.
Why is Canada keeping this under wraps, though? Because I know that they have held talks with India. They've accused India of not being cooperative. So is that why they're holding it back for now?
This is a question that only Trudeau can answer because this ugly diplomatic spat between two friendly democracies is unprecedented. We have never had a case before where two major democracies have got embroiled in an escalating diplomatic spat. Unfortunately, what's happening because of these developments since last year is that India's old wounds are being reopened. Those wounds were created by two Air India bombings, and those bombings originated in Canada. Two Canadian inquiries found that Canada-based Sikh terrorists were involved in those two Air India bombings that killed 331 people. Today, those old wounds are being reopened. In fact, in a way, history is repeating itself. In the period before those two bombings, Canada had refused to extradite to India some Sikh terrorists who were wanted in India on terrorism charges. And one of them, the key guy that India wanted, went on to be the mastermind of those Air India bombings, according to Canadian government inquiries. Today, under Justin Trudeau, Sikh militants in Canada are being given open space to wage strident campaigns glorifying political violence against India, including erecting billboards in Canada, calling for the assassination of Indian diplomats, mounting attacks on Indian diplomatic missions, and publicly honoring convicted terrorists as martyrs. All this has been happening under Trudeau's watch. So in India, the passions are running high. And I think because Trudeau has crossed a red line, an Indian red line, and I think India is willing to escalate matters further, which means that this deterioration in bilateral relations could worsen further before efforts to repair the relationship begin under a new Canadian government, because elections are due in Canada next year, and right now, Trudeau is deeply unpopular at home.
But you can also understand at the same point that the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, that could send chills down the spine of the Sikh community in Canada, the biggest outside of India. If something like this happens there, what would you say to that effect?
Well, first, Mr. Nijjar, according to Canadian media investigations, was linked with a terrorist group called the Khalistan Commando force, a group that has been designated as a terror group, not just by India, but by several Western governments. And according to the Globe and Mail, which is the most respected Canadian newspaper, this guy Nijjar sent two assassins to the Indian state of Punjab to carry out terrorist acts. So one has to keep that in one's mind. As far as the Sikhs in Canada are concerned, they are by and large peaceful community. They're not associated with separatist activity. They do not support the cause of the separatists. So the issue is not between the Sikhs of Canada and the Indian government. It's about this fringe group among the Sikhs who terrorize the mainstream Sikhs in Canada and who are waging a campaign which goes against Canada's own long-term interests. Because ultimately, as happened in 1985 with the two Air India bombings, these Sikh militants are going to threaten Canada's security one day, sooner or later.
Now, 4 of the suspects that have been arrested by Canada, they are all Indian nationals, but also, interestingly, all 4 are of Sikh origin. What do you make of that?
Well, the suspects who have been arrested by Canadian police were arrested months after the killing of Nijjar, which happened 16 months ago. And these 4 suspects who have been arrested are members of gangs. Intra-Sikh gangland killings in Canada's British Columbia have become common. And the question that many Canadians are asking was whether Niger a victim of gangland warfare, or was there outside interference? On that, the Canadian government has shed little light. The fact is that because these Sikh separatists are linked with drug trafficking, arms trafficking, there is this intra-Sikh gangland warfare, which is posing increasing threat to law and order in British Columbia. And Mr. Niger, who was involved in providing military training in arms to other Sikh militants, the question that many Canadians are asking is whether he fell victim to his own nefarious activities.
Given what you said about Justin Trudeau earlier, do you believe that he and his government are supportive of a separatist movement?
It's plain domestic politics. Justin Trudeau, for years, survived on the support of the New Democratic Party, which is still led by Jagmeet Singh, who's a known Khalistan supporter. That is, he supports the creation of an independent Sikh homeland to be known as Khalistan. So pandering to Sikh militants became essential for Justin Trudeau to survive in office. He's been in office for 9 years. Now, the New Democratic Party has withdrawn support from Justin Trudeau's government. It is a minority government, increasingly under pressure from not just the opposition, from mainstream groups to resign, because it's a deeply unpopular government. The elections are due only in October next year, a year from now, but calls are growing that for him to resign or call early elections.
And Professor Chellaney, you're in India, of course. Could you give us a sense of what support there is for the Khalistani movement, particularly in Punjab?
It's a good question because, many people living overseas do not know this, that the Khalistan movement, by and large, is dead in India. Very few Sikhs support the demand for Khalistan. The Washington-based respectable institution known as Pew Research Center, which carries out global surveys, 3 years ago, they did a survey of the Sikhs in India and found that most Sikhs in India are proud to be Indian, that they do not support the separatist cause, that most Sikhs actually are against the activities of these Khalistani activists who are located largely in Canada and the United States.
Okay, Professor Brahma Chellaney, really good to get your thoughts this evening. Thanks very much.
Thank you.